Hudur, there is a question from some friends, not mine, that they say that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went before limits in marriage. He get married to 9 wives, and he get married to Hadrat Aisha while she was 9 years old. What is the truth about this?
I understand that. You see, it is not the marriage when it is consummated which is important. It is the leaving of the bride's house and living with the husband as husband and wife, which is important in this issue, in this regard. In many countries, in Africa as well, and in Pakistan, in rural areas, it's a custom that sometimes a girl is married while she is that high. But it is never meant that she is actually married. It is meant that she is bonded to that man, and after that it is decided that they would, when they grow up, they will become husband and wife. So when they grow up, then another ceremony takes place, which is of sending off, and that always happens after the girl has become mature. In case of Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu ta'ala anha, at 9 years age, she didn't start living with Rasulullah sallam. It was only al-uqd that was consummated. After Hijrah, she went to the house of Rasulullah sallam only after she had become a mature lady, not before that. So this objection is absolutely wrong.
Yes, Hudur, I'll translate this, but about his marriage more than 4 or more.
That all we have already discussed, haven't we, earlier?
Yes.
We have?
So, yes, we discussed it, yes.
Why should we repeat it anymore?
Okay.
Because I think we did it in detail.
Yes.
Sure. About the second issue, I think I have definitely discussed it many times, but was it here in the Qal Arab?
Yes.
About why 4 than more than 4?
Yes.
Huh?
I think we discussed the point of why the number is 4, and that means Islam limited it and regulated
then why the number was more in case of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
This we want to
We didn't discuss. Okay,
yes.
I'll come to that. You see, as far as Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam is concerned, the entire issue is about when the limitation of 4 was laid. It was laid much later, after the Hijrah, of course, and by that time he had already married more than 4. Now the issue was, according to the Holy Quran, when the limit of 4 was imposed, the choice was given to every husband to keep some and divorce others. And in some cases, maybe 50 or 60 wives were divorced. In cases of rich people, of the chieftains of Arab, this was the custom. They could even marry 100 wives and no care, as long as they could maintain them. So what happened, according to history, all men, Muslim men, started divorcing those who had married more than once and more than 4 times. They started divorcing extra number of wives beyond 4. Now, Rasulullah sallam was not like an ordinary person. For his wives, first of all, if they were divorced, they couldn't marry again. While in case of all other Muslims, they could marry again. So it will be cruelty to women, even twice as much cruelty than ordinary circumstances. Number one, to be married to Rasulullah sallam and forced by Allah to depart. That would be the greatest cruelty to women who begin to live with Rasulullah sallam and appreciate his beauty and fall in love with him in body and spirit, everything. So that was kindness to the ladies rather than to Rasulullah sallam. Secondly, they were not permitted to marry again. So what would happen to poor things? Then choice making was left to the husband. And here Rasulullah sallam was saved a lot of embarrassment. See? to say I like this, this that was too below the dignity of Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to make such choices. And he lived with them despite the fact that he didn't like all of them equitably. So it was an honorable act on his part not to divorce any after this injunction came from Allah, and to live with them equitably despite the fact that personally he didn't like some. At least the indication that he didn't like them as much. And that is why Allah clarified in the Quran that if naturally you can't love them alike, no problem, but you must treat them alike. And that's what he did. So these are three obvious reasons which come to my mind, if I have not discussed them before.
There is another point, Hudur. I think the Quran said that you cannot change or marry another one. That's
after 9.
Yes.
But after 9.
Yes.
What I am pointing out is people think that after this instruction he started marrying. This is not right. He had already married 9 times when this happened.
Now, يقول حضرته أن
maybe there could be one exception. Now when the figure of 9 was fixed, the only exception which comes to my mind is in case of Hazrat Safiya, who came to be married to Hazrat Rasulullah after the Fateh Khaybar, after the victory of Khaybar, conquest of Khaybar.
Yes.
Which happened after the year 7, I think, or between Azab and Sulh Hudaybiyah, or a bit. When was it? Do you remember exactly? Around about 7.
But she gave herself to him.
No, but I mean to say is, she came as a prize of war.
No.
That's right.
No.
And because she was the daughter of the chieftain, and also the wife of the chieftain previously, wasn't she? And by the act of the war, either he was murdered, the husband, or a divorce took place. So it was her own choice. She also opted for Rasulullah. And according to the customs prevalent in those days, the chief lady who becomes a prisoner of war would be offered to the chief of the conquering army. So Rasulullah was the chief and she was the chieftain girl. So that is why it happened. And before that she had also seen a dream in which she had seen that the moon fell into her lap. And when she related this dream to her father, he slapped her on the face. She was a very little child at that time. He said, do you mean that you will marry the king of Arabia? You see, he immediately understood. So this, apart from other things, it shows that it was an ordained marriage by Allah. And she was told this while she was a little child, when Rasulullah had not yet become a prophet of Allah. Or if he had, the news had not reached abroad. Now there's another point about his marriage to Hazrat Zainab. When did it happen? That is the question. Did it happen after the limitation or before the limitation? So if this injunction came, the limitation to 4 and the exceptional permission to Rasulullah to go up to 9, before that, then it means that he had not already reached the figure of 9, and God had previously ordained that you can go up to 9. In that case, it is obvious that it is predicted, and in both these cases the circumstances are so special that it is justified. But if that came after this, after his marriage to Hazrat Zainab, after his marriage to Hazrat Safiya, then most of the Sahaba till that time kept 4 wives, more than 4 wives. because they divorced them only after this injunction came. So these dates are not clear in my mind, but have you got the dates? No. But one thing is certain, that this injunction came some years after his hijrah to Medina. It hadn't been this verse was not revealed at the time of Hazrat Aisha's marriage, for instance. And when Hazrat Zainab got married to him, at that time I don't hear any mention of this limit. So it must have, this verse must have been revealed about the limitation and exception of 9, the figure of 9 being an exception for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That must have happened somewhere in the middle of the hijrah, which means most of his life was already spent, and in the very little life which was left, the last one which was added was Hazrat Safiya, and that had an additional advantage of giving the message to the Jews that now you have come under the house of Hazrat Ismail, you know, and this is the final last for you. No hope for Bani Ishaq anymore. It's Bani Ismail which you are going to rule. And this actually happened because Allah brought about an incident which indicated this. The incident was that perhaps it was Aisha Siddiqa or someone else who realized that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course he loved Aisha most, but he had very special care for this lady who came from a noble house of Israelites, and he had regard for all her parents, etc. So once some lady, some wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taunted her as being a Jew's girl, Jew's daughter. So in response, Rasulullah, when she was very upset, very bitter about it, Rasulullah went to her, why didn't you say this to that lady? He said, you are only the wife of a prophet. That's all you have to your advantage. I am also the wife of that same prophet, but I am also the daughter of Abraham, Isaac, Abraham, and this and that. So that parenthood running up to Hazrat Abraham was mentioned. So that must have played a very important role, that belonging, the sense of belonging to the Prophet Abraham up to the time of Safiya getting married to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once he got married, then there was the end of a chapter. A new era begins. From then on is the house of Ismail, which was to rule supreme in the sight of Allah. So I think these are very interesting spiritual messages which we draw from these marriages as well. Hazrat Khasa, I'll tell you what it was.
No.
Hazrat Zainab was married to Hazrat Zaid against the noble traditions of Arabia, which would not permit or would not encourage an Arab noble lady to be married to a slave. And on top of that, if that slave happens to be a foreigner. So Hazrat Zainab was given to Hazrat Zaid particularly by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she had that special respect for him despite her personal reluctance. And the indication on the Quran is that she, in fact, later on, she didn't like him much anyway, and he also had lost interest in her, because according to the Holy Quran, when he had fulfilled all his desire towards her and no more was left, only then this happened. So Hazrat Rasulullah sallam had a cousin who was so obedient and so thoughtful of Rasulullah's desire that despite the fact that he was asking her to be married to his own slave, against all the noble traditions of Arabia and particularly of Quraysh, she submitted. When this happened, that ultimately Zayd lost interest in her, then imagine her miserable state. She didn't let it know, but Allah decided that she should be sent back to the house of Muhammad Rasulullah, and whereby he will also feel relieved that I have done no injustice to this lady, my cousin. So there are the reasons behind all these decisions of Allah. It was not his desire to marry her, as sometimes, most often in fact, the Muslim mullahs of the medieval type, they interpret the verse that you are afraid of the people, and I tell you, be only afraid of me. You see, they interpret it so differently and crookedly. They say that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had fallen in love with the wife of Zayd, his own so-called son, son by adoption. So he fell in love with her, and he was hiding it from people, not afraid of Allah as much as the people. This is the dirtiest accusation that the Muslim scholars could level at Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Unbelievable, not for a second. So whatever was the fear, it did not erupt from his relationship with her at all. It had nothing to do with it. What happened was, he began to see that she was no longer acceptable to Zayd. So the verse tells us that he spoke to Zayd and said, fear Allah and try to reconcile. Try to live with her. If he had fallen in love, why should he have said that? See, I don't know how they become blind to these things. Allah tells us that he spoke to Zayd and said, fear Allah and be kind to your wife and keep her. But when Zayd expressed his inability, that he can't live with her anymore as a husband and wife, the issue is over. Then it was the responsibility of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, what he was worried about was the custom of Arabia to misunderstand things. Not that he loved and everybody would know. That if he marries this girl because it was his responsibility, then the common people of Arabia will misunderstand, and they would think that I'm compelled by my desire, so much so that I am ready to marry the divorcee of my adopted son. That must have been the fear in the mind of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah told him that you are doing it for a good cause, and where you are doing it for a good cause, don't care for the diseased people. Let them think whatever they think. Allah knows that you are on up and up, you are clear, and you are doing it for a good cause. So Allah said, I permit you to do it, and also declared that these adoptions do not mean anything. And that was an incidental benefit we drew from this issue. From then on we realized, and it was made clear, that Allah makes blood relationships. Your tongues cannot. Your mouths are incapable of bonding anybody into a blood relationship. So it was just an expression of love and dearness and endearment, no more. So all these things, benefits, are related to the issue of this marriage. It's a very important marriage. It should have had taken place. Right?
وإلى لقاء قادم إن شاء الله.
Time is over. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.